Welcome to the Game Grind. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today I'm not going to go into very much of an intro here because I don't have any notes in front of me, and because the conceit of what we're doing in today's video is pretty simple, and the video is going to be fairly long in the first place. Anyway, today we are going to be doing a commentary track, basically me giving a couple of tips and tricks, sort of basically my experience going through, let's see if I can figure out the right mode to go to here, doing the Little Nightmares speedrun trophy, the one that involves playing the game in under an hour without any deaths. So you'll see that I have a YouTube video up on here. This was the recording that I did for this, and viewing it on YouTube was the easiest way to do it, so I have an unlisted version of it that I'm working from. This recording that I uploaded had, a failed attempt that I had to restart in the middle of, but what we're going to watch today is the successful attempt of the speedrun. So there are a couple little notes that I want to give for you if you're going to attempt this, and especially depending on which version you're going to attempt this. The version that we're going to watch, the recording that I actually have for you guys, is of the PS4 version of the game, or the original version of the game, rather than the enhanced edition of the game. There are, believe it or not, a couple of differences in the way that some things happen to go. So without much further ado, let me just go ahead and get the video actually started here, and let me hope that this is actually going to capture the audio of the game properly and that it's not messed up, because I had some weird goofy static stuff in gameplay footage for a handful of weeks that I couldn't figure out how to fix and don't know how it started in the first place. But yeah, the very beginning of the game, I'm not 100% sure if this intro cinematic counts within the game's save file, if within the game's in-game playtime for the trophy, but every time that I timed myself playing it, I did count it, and it seems like the audio is not actually coming through. That is unfortunate. I do not know why that is. Anyway, yeah, so you start off from the game. Good thing to note is that jumping does make you go quicker, but jumping too much depletes your stamina. So my general tactic for running this speed run was to just hold the sprint basically, and then to jump every handful of steps. That allowed me to get some pretty good distance going whenever I was running and sprinting without running out of too much stamina while playing along. Obviously you're going to go through that hatch, you're gonna come through this little tunnel, and then same thing, you're just gonna run. And luckily running upstairs doesn't seem to consume very much stamina for the most part, but I still kind of let off on the sprint button a couple times on stairs just to replenish a little bit of that stamina. Jumping every handful of steps as you see here, do a little slide, or even just crouch through there. Just continue to run. You can see my character starting to get tired, but now that we're climbing here, have a chance to rest. That works. Go on the bed, through the window. There are some people who will try to do proper speedrun strats and only pull the chair as close as as far away as it can possibly be for you to still hit the handle. You have more than enough time to be able to drag it basically all the way to the door. You're fine. In that little spot there, avoid actually stepping in the goo. It slows you down. It gets you stuck a bit. So just, stay a little bit closer to the screen as you're coming across that section. Climb up the fridge and onto the little roof here. Kind of a similar tactic here. When you're sprinting, just jump across this gap. Maybe only jump every handful of steps. Just so that you can still be going quicker, getting that little bit of an extra boost, that distance, without getting too super tired. As long as you're running through that section, those leeches they're not any concern at all. Jump the gap there, and then same thing here. You're going to be very tired running out of that stamina by the time you have to pull the plank off, but that's okay. Here I recommend jumping whenever you get to that spot, because when you jump, you're actually a little bit closer to the edge of that big black pile of goo that we just landed in. Dodge and weave through those leeches. If you just kind of go up, down, you should only need to jump over the very last leech. It's a fairly consistent strat. I think I only got caught by a leech there once, and that was because I jumped right on top of it because I mistimed things. Over this bridge, it is important to note, in the enhanced version, you basically snap onto that. You get on it, you're not going to fall off, basically. In the original version of the game, it is very easy to fall off that. My very first attempt running through the speedrun on this version of the game, I fell off because I was expecting it to snap on like it did in the enhanced version. So that's something to be aware of. This gap between the door here is, of course, very safe to jump over both directions to save you a solid handful of seconds. You don't really need to worry about making time enough to get under the door. You're perfectly fine if you're sprinting and jumping a couple times. You know, just general basic gameplay there. Same thing here. I'll jump a handful of times while making it to the clothes that we're, or the bed sheets that we're going to climb up here. But climbing up the bed sheets, you have time to replenish a lot of your stamina. So you're still going to be pretty solid here. Up to this point in the game, there's only that one minorly sketchy section with the leeches. There, when you drop down, if you happen to get lucky and hit the edge of the box before landing, you don't have as much of a stun recovery. If you are sprinting with your lighter out and you're coming towards you, when you go through that door, you don't hit the door enough to like really open it to get in the way of how you're seeing in that moment most of the time. But even so, it's not that hard to drag those the toilet paper box towards the switch, jump on it, and then hit the switch. Very consistent for me when I went through it. And then you're just doing your normal jumping and running strats here. During this hallway, I'll usually take a little bit more of a break to give my stamina a break, but I happened to have more of it this time around. But you're pretty good to be basically out of it by this point, because you need to stop and wait for the light to go. It'll always start on the left, then go to the middle, then go to the right, and then you just run along the back end of the area around like this. Then you never have to worry about the timing of the light versus the other obstacles. Very consistent strat again. And actually, if you run too quickly along the back side of the arena, I did have one time where I got caught by the light that way because I was actually too quick. So being out of stamina is fine there. When you climb up these boxes, I always walk up until I get to the point of the door here, because when you get here, you can actually start jumping right around there, halfway point of the room. You can just sprint and jump and run, and then I jump straight from that rug there onto the cage. If you do that, the janitor doesn't hear you. Like, he just straight up does not hear you if you are too far away already by that point. It's like he's not in the room enough to actually hear you yet, so you can just go right across there. You don't have to waste the 30 seconds or whatever waiting for him to leave the room in order to go. You can just book it, and that's why I save the stamina, so that I can confidently make it through the room. This section, you know, the sections with the hunger, there's not really any strats to get through it any quicker, especially not this first one. You can try to jump a couple times if possible, but for the most part, it doesn't really change very much about how much time the section takes. You have to go through the same number of hunger pangs. In this first one, you have to wait for the boy to throw you the bread anyway, so it just genuinely does not make any difference the way that you tackle this section. You just have to sit here, wait. Once he throws the bread, obviously go ahead and grab it immediately to eat it, and then you're good to go. And yeah, not much commentary here. It's just it's actually the most tedious part about having to redo runs if you happen to fail, is these hunger sections in the first couple chapters, because they take so long and you have to crawl, you're trudging, you're not really having the opportunity to go very quick. It's just more annoying than it is anything else. Here you're just gonna continue doing that sprinting and jumping every handful of steps strat while you're going through the room and across the bridge. It doesn't really make much difference how quickly you go, just as long as you're just going as quickly as possible. You climb up here. Again, you have plenty of time, so it doesn't really matter if you miss that jump there, or if you have to retry it, or if you just have to climb up those cages. I had to do that a couple times. It's fine. The worst case scenario is that you just have to wait a little bit longer for this platform that you have to jump on to swing over to you, because if your timing is pretty similar to mine, you're basically good to just sprint right on over to it. You're pretty safe most of the time anyway, but you know, if you have to wait a few extra seconds to make sure it swings back to you, that's fine. In this case, if you're a little bit further away on the chain, just jump a little or climb a little bit higher before you make that jump, because sometimes if you're closer, you don't have to climb as high to make it. But just to be safe, spending 1 extra second climbing longer on the chain makes no difference. You'll pull that switch, and then on this switch here, you have to wait until it's all the way up before you can pull it. Basically, as soon as the boxes are all the way over to you, just do the strat of the game. You then pull it over and jump, basically. There is a strat where you can go a little bit quicker by pulling it over and then immediately going to the other side, but sometimes you might actually end up wasting time if you don't give yourself, if it just happens to not have enough time for you to jump across, if that makes sense. Over here, just remember that it is the far left cabinets that you have to pull out to be able to make the jump and be able to make it over. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, you just do that, pull the switch. My gosh, my footage is dark here, I can't see a thing. Yeah, and then you pull out your light, push the locker down, and then you wait. So yeah, this entire first chapter overall is actually a very simple, very easy section, just as long as you don't do anything silly like get caught by the leeches early on, because that can happen. I only had it happen once, and honestly that happened because I wasn't paying enough attention more than anything else. And then if you miss the noose when you're actually trying to come down this section, but overall, you're generally going to be okay. Here, again, just follow that tactic of jumping every few steps. Try not to let a leech land on top of you by being too close to the screen. I never got caught in any of my attempts there, but just to be safe, just try to avoid it, I guess. By the time you get to this hallway, I usually tend to just save my stamina through this section a little bit, because you're going to want it here. If you've been timing everything here, I guess I'm just going to pause real quick. If you've been timing everything well up to this point, the pattern of the eye movement is pretty consistent actually between whether it comes to you and with that little mop bucket going on. So we're going to play again right now. When it comes to the left and is actually looking over at you, as soon as it looks away, you are free to go along the backside of the arena again, and then it'll eventually be looking over to the right, and it'll follow the mop bucket. But once it's already looked at the right, it'll look at the left side, and then it'll either come towards the mop bucket or just straight up go to the left side, depending on where the ship is in its actual movement patterns. But overall, looking back at this section again, it is a fairly consistent. Once it has looked at the left at you, you're good to go on back. You wait for it to look to the right like that. As soon as it looks away, you have enough time, usually, as long as the bucket's not there. Just jump over and you'll have enough time based off of the angle of the light to be able to make it through. You know, your mileage may vary a little bit there, but I found that room to actually be much more consistent than I thought it would be upon my first playthrough. But both of those sections with the eyes, just go to the back of the room and kind of wait for the eye to be looking somewhere else, and you're good. And this is the end of the first chapter of the run. So that is all well and good. I will go ahead and actually skip forward a little bit because the loading screens on the PS4 version are really long, and add a few minutes to my runtime, even though they don't contribute to the save file. Once you're loaded in, you just immediately start running. Basically, you just go all the way up the stairs. I tend to sprint all the way up the stairs, and then I tend to release the sprint button once I'm at the top of the first landing here, just to ensure that I make it onto the second landing fine. Do the same thing, sprint to the top, stop sprinting until I'm on the next flight, and then call that good. Again, in the original version of the game, I had a little bit more jankiness with regard to actually making it onto the stairs and with like snapping in there versus the enhanced version, so that's something to keep in mind. Once you climb through into this room here, you're good to just drag the suitcase over. You know, there are strats to go even quicker, like, you know, not glitches per se, but with specific angles of stuff where you can get the key technically quicker, but it's certainly not something that I would want to try doing with the imprecision of the controller, and certainly not on the original version of the game, which is slightly less precise as a rule. So you just pull the suitcase over just enough to, you know, span between the bed and the switch, pull the switch, jump on the bed, climb up here, This is another minor difference between the two versions of the game. Normally you can drop in the enhanced version, you can drop there, and as soon as you grab on the edge of that bookshelf, you can drop directly onto the box, and that obviously saves a couple seconds. In the original version, if you're grabbed onto that ledge, it'll just make you climb up to the top anyway, so you have to go through that animation, then jump down and grab the key. Also, depending on where the ship is, I've had times where I've been able to go through that door just holding the key like that without ever interacting with it, and I've had other times where I've had to actually push it, not holding the key, for it to actually be open enough to do anything. So, you know, just be aware that that is something that can sometimes change. Just throw the monkey, grab the monkey after you get the switch to get the elevator coming down, so that you can get the elevator going down even more as soon as you're inside. No big deal, just general gameplay stuff, just not wasting any time. You won't need that monkey again, so you don't need to worry about it. Once we're back down to the bottom of this next section, and we're heading towards the left, because the elevator will open to the left here. Again, this is a section where a lot of it is just a time waster, just inherently because of the hunger pang stuff. You can try to go through as quick as possible with some of the sprint jump strategy, but it's nothing with the distance of it or the timing of it that I was able to manage to get down very much. It's just a really tedious hallway that you're going down here, just kind of dealing with the pangs. You spend a lot of time just walking very slowly in this one compared to the original one, and I just couldn't find a consistent way to make that not be a thing. So, you know, just be aware that there's a pipe right there and crawl under it. But otherwise, you're basically good to go. I did have one time where I was running this where this hunger pang specifically didn't hit until I was basically at the doorway, but because you still have to go through the pang, it doesn't really save that much time, and again, I couldn't find any way to make the distance of things very consistent. In fact, the timing of everything, the distance of everything in this particular run was actually what was most consistent. The one time that I had it a little bit quicker was like my first attempt on the enhanced version specifically, and I never managed to replicate it. So yeah, you're basically good to go here. You'll get captured by the janitor, of course, as you do, and you will wake up. Loading screen. Like I said, the PS4 version is a good bit slower than the PS5 version for obvious reasons. You'll know as soon as you are able to move in this section. Obviously, if you just continue moving your stick left and right all the time, it'll be fine. But as soon as 6 moves right there, you're basically good to go. As soon as you stand, you can just start going. It takes a few hits on each side, I believe, just like that. You have to do like 4 or something, both directions to go. Similar to the chair from chapter 1 with pulling the cage, I just recommend pulling it so you're basically right underneath the handle there, because, you know, it's better to guarantee hitting it and saving that time versus missing it and wasting the time that you would otherwise be wasting. You have enough leeway in this run to be fine. You just do a couple swings back and forth, and you will almost always have the distance to be able to slide under it in time. That is something that you might want to practice on your own, though, just to be sure that you've got it down, because I have had one time where it was a little bit close for comfort. This section is notable because you can just jump across the carpets here. Jump, you'll land on the ground and he'll sort of hear you, but you'll be on the carpet, climb on top of the cages, and even if he sort of starts to look back, if you jump across and you don't land on the hardwood floor again in that room, the janitor won't hear you. You can very consistently just plow through the back of the room just like I did with no issues. I replicated that, I think, every single time that I tried this. When you're pulling the lever, by the time that little grate is most of the way open and the handle is like down like this, you can let go and run. You have enough time, obviously, to be able to make it into the opening without the janitor catching you, and in fact, you won't even see the janitor at all. I don't think I ever saw the janitor even manage to open the door before I was through, so you're basically good there. You'll just climb a little bit through some more vents and deal with the shoe monster here. This section is also pretty easy. Just sprint and jump and beeline it towards the corner of this suitcase. As soon as you're on top, just jump to the other suitcase. If you have a good angle and speed, you often basically won't even land in the shoes. You'll climb up like immediately. Same thing over here. If you just go quick enough, the shoe monster won't ever even despawn, which actually puts it a little bit further behind you than you would in a standard run. You never have to worry about the shoe monster catching you. Like, it's just not going to happen. In this section, I usually walk up the stairs and then wait to start sprinting until the janitor starts like actually coming down. If you do the sprint and jump routine here, you actually end up like way more than safe, because even though the janitor looks like he tries to catch up there, he like basically stops at the end of the hallway, gives you the chance to make it to this box with no issues whatsoever. I don't know what the deal is with the AI there, but generally speaking, like, you are way more than safe in this encounter. If you start running as soon as he drops down, you're not going to get caught, basically. So that is how things go in this run. As far as the elevator ride up goes, just stick in the corner of the box. Just don't move. You know, don't do anything that might get you caught. The gnomes will be chased, and honestly, as soon as the janitor is through that door, you can come out and start sprinting. Like, he's not gonna turn back around and do anything to you. At least I've never seen that happen. So you can do it basically as soon as he's out of your sight. You can go push the box over, land in the grates down below. Here is where I would often try to save time out of impatience more than anything, and I think most of my restarts were because of this, were me trying to climb up this little ladder here before the janitor actually goes over to the other room. It's kind of stupid. You don't need to do that. Like, you can just wait for him to start going to the other side and you'll be fine. Just make sure that you grab the monkey here. Try not to knock it over so that it makes noise, because that's getting a little close. Throw it to the other side of the room there, and then just, you know, crouch walk over the carpet through to the other side. Again, just kind of maneuver around the carpet. Try not to knock that monkey over, either of these monkeys over here, and then just climb. And again, this is a pretty consistent, like, you'll make it up in time as long as the first monkey in the other room is far enough away, that the janitor is far enough away, so that when you climb the shelves, like, you're fine, right? That might be a section that's worth practicing. But like I said, most of the times that I got caught doing this run was in that section, just because I climbed that initial ladder there to make it into the room before the janitor left the room, just because of impatience, and it's inconsistent whether he hears you climbing up that or not. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, which is why I bother doing it most of the time. But yeah, this room you can just go. You wait for the janitor to climb up, you just jump across, knock the door down. By the time you get to this part of the carpet over here where the shoes drop down, you can just wait there and crouch, grab a shoe, wait for the clocks to start ringing for the janitor to react to that, and as soon as that happens, just throw the shoe, and then you're good to just run. And even if the janitor does hear you when you're on the floor here, because sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, even if he does, you're just good to go. You can make it to the end of the hallway and squeeze through the door there with, again, no issues whatsoever. So you're good to go, and you're good to climb up. So you do have a couple of sequences there that are a little bit tighter as far as timing and some other technicality stuff goes, but it's nothing too much to worry about. Usually I make it through with the proper timing to just be able to jump over to the piano immediately once I'm up that bookshelf, which allows you to get up to this bookshelf immediately. Sometimes you have to wait a few seconds. It's no big deal if you do. Like I said, this run has quite a bit of leeway. I believe in my enhanced version run, I was able to look at my save file time, and I think my save file was like 50 and a half minutes or something like that. Maybe 51 and a half. And I wasn't doing it like super quickly. It was just the very specific. The way that I go about this run is basically the way that I went about every run, as far as my efficiency and speed and tactics and stuff went. So, like, you have a solid handful of minutes, even if you mess something up, or even if you have to restart a section. And I did have to restart sections in this particular run. You're good. Like, you can have some messed up attempts and restart checkpoints. You'll be fine. As long as you don't get caught, as long as you don't die, you are good. That is a very important thing to note. If you do get caught, obviously just go through this room the way that I'm showing you. It's really not that difficult. You can do it this quickly in the base game. It's not hard. In this room, just turn on the TV, grab the switch, you know, if the TV will let you push it, because sometimes hitboxes get a little bit funny, or collision, whatever you want to call it. Just grab the handle, crouch right next to the opening of the door, not obviously right next to the door where it will open, but just below it, and you'll be fine. But anyway, like I was saying, in this game, if you are grabbed by an enemy and you hit the options button, you hit the pause button, and you have a restart checkpoint option, you're safe. Like, you're good to go. If you do not have that restart checkpoint option when you pause, it means that the game has saved you as having died, and your run is over, and you have to restart the whole thing. But if you need to restart a checkpoint now and again, you're fine. But yeah, when the janitor comes through that door, once he's far enough away, like, just crouch walk until you're over to the carpet again, and then you can just sprint through the rest of the room because he's not going to hear you. When you're pulling the piano up, just pull it up all the way, obviously. Usually you'll have a good enough timing to just jump straight over to the piano. Once again, you basically won't see the janitor. Like, you might want to practice it a couple times, but you're fine. Here, you know, it's nothing too difficult. Sometimes dragging this little minecart across the room can get a little bit complicated with regard to what the ship is doing, where it is in its rocking motion. Sometimes it's harder to pull and sometimes it's not. But, you know, the section's not that bad. Just be sure to push the minecart over the steam. You don't even have to jump on top of the minecart. You can just jump over the gap over here, and then you're not risking anything. And then just pull it the rest of the way. And a good little tip is that if the cart doesn't actually make it technically all the way to the end of the line, if it gets you stuck there, you still have enough space to go. And if the rocking of the ship is in your favor, you're good. But on that door, do not let go of it. The earlier door that you have to jump from the chair to reach in the first chapter, you can let go of as soon as you open it. But that one, do not let go of, because you will land in the gap, obviously, or, you know, down below, and you will die. And that's would not be fun to forget that and have to restart the run because of that. That would be awful. Here, just wait in the middle until the hand of the janitor goes up. As soon as it's up, just crouch walk, you know, under it, and you're good. Walk through this little section because you want to save a little bit of stamina when you're running away from the janitor. As soon as the door opens, basically you can sprint, just do your jump tactic. I do the jump at every break in the ground here just for stamina reasons. Slide underneath the door. Now this section is going to be another one that you're going to want to practice because it can get sketchy, but most consistent for me is to just sit at the top of the box, jump as soon as the left hand pulls away. Usually I would actually try to pull the bar closer to you, closer to the screen first, because if you're going to get caught, it's while pulling that bar, and you don't want to pull one of them and then get caught on the second one. If you're going to get caught here, you want to get caught on the first one just because it's slightly less aggravating. But yeah, just jump, you know, be on the top of the tall box. As soon as the left hand pulls away, you're basically good to just, you know, do a sprint jump over it. Sometimes you'll be stunned upon landing on the ground for a couple seconds. If that happens, it's best to just not even risk pulling the bar, because every time that happened for me and I tried pulling it anyway, I just didn't have the right angle or enough time before one of the hands ended up just grabbing me. So yeah, just that section's a good one to practice. That portion of chapter 2 is definitely a, you know, run killer just at the very end there. So there are a couple sections there in chapter 2 that can be a bit sketch, and I think that those two spots account for my most resets by far. So that can be a bit aggravating, obviously, because that's like, what, 25-ish minutes into the run out of a 50 to 55 minute run. So being that far in and having to reset kind of sucks, but yeah, otherwise you're good. Starting off in chapter 3, chapter 3 is the other difficult one. There are a couple sketchy sections here as well. I would say, obviously the very end of the chapter is the most sketchy part of the game outside of dealing with the arms of Mr. Noodly Janitor Man, but we'll get there when we get there. As long as you don't do anything very silly and like let go of the hook while you're traveling across here, you're fine. Just remember that at the very beginning of this chapter, you'll have another one of those hunger ping sections going on. But based on the, I think, wherever it registers in the code, if you just kind of do a sprint and jump off the pile here, you won't hit the first one until you actually land on the ground, which does sort of actually save you a little bit of time instead of it starting while you're still walking down the pile. You can generally do a few jumps. I actually got caught with the second pang here, but very often I was able to be like on top of this pile of whatever it is here before the second one actually hit. And then you're generally just good to go until right there where the third one will strike pretty consistently when you're within sight of the rat. So it's just another section of wasting time because of how slow you're going, and where you can't really do very much to save very much time unless you're on PC, where controls are sort of a little bit more precise, I think. But yeah, on console at least, you just kind of deal with it. Jump onto these boxes here, just make it into the next room. I tend to try to just jump between the boxes because it's a little bit easier than having to climb up. This is also another weird thing where I think specifically in the Enhanced Edition, pushing that plate over sometimes is very difficult. I don't know why. It's some weird, I don't know what it is specifically, but just be aware that just keep pushing. Usually it's easy. Sometimes it just does weird things and you're fine. Same thing with this mine cart here, or whatever you want to call it. I actually had a weird situation there where I missed the jump and had to re-climb up. I had one time where I missed the jump, but it let me get it anyway because of the way that it collided with the wall on my body. But in either case, through this section, you can do the crouch and make sure that you're holding the sprint option while you're still crouched, because you'll crouch walk faster. I just go straight across. When the gnome over here goes and you're going over, the chef will almost always see you right around this point. Just hide underneath the table here. You get some weird inconsistencies with the AI and what the chef does from this point in the kitchen very often. I believe I might have a couple of resets in this specific run because of it. Like, very often the chef never checked under that table specifically over there, but this time he did for some reason. But usually when they start going the other direction, I tend to try to just go and like get behind this box and then climb up. Obviously it's hard to see where the chefs actually are, and that can be a bit rough. And there I managed to get caught. I managed to attract or aggro the chef even when I was behind the cabinets there at the top of the stairs, and at that point they will just go straight towards the cabinet on the far side of the room when you try to climb up, and it's not worth getting caught there. I did have a run ended because I got caught there from this exact scenario, so I was like, I'm fine, I've had a good run up to this point, I'm just going to restart the checkpoint and try it again. So this is something that you might encounter, but again, you can just go to hide under this, and chef didn't even want to go check and see where I was this time compared to the other time, which was weird. You know, there are some weird inconsistencies where the actual vision cones of the chefs versus where you're at and what's going on can be a bit weird. I don't know why I took the risk to move that direction there, and, you know, got me in a lot of trouble, especially since the chef decided to come over to the right side of the room for, I think, the only time that happened in any of my attempts. He went to the right instead of the left if he was in the middle of the room when hiding there. So again, I had to reset because he saw me and I never would have made it away in time. And you don't want to risk getting almost grabbed and, oh wait, you actually did get grabbed and now you have to restart the entire run. Better to just reset the checkpoint and, you know, redo the minute or so that you spent doing that, because you do have, like, honestly 5 to 10 minutes of leeway depending on how you actually run through the game, that you are fine. You don't actually have a save file runtime that you can actually check in this version of the game versus the Enhanced Edition. You have a few save slots that you can check, but yeah, so it better to just restart the checkpoint and have to redo that minute or so than to get caught and have to reset the entire run. So, you know, I was actually starting to get frustrated after that second look, and like the same thing happened here, where again I got caught way too early, where the chef just happened to be looking back towards to the right to see me sneaking away, where in all of my runs on the Enhanced Edition, I think I only had like 1 out of 8 hours worth of attempts where that particular issue happened, but it happened like 3 times here on this version of the game, so you just have to be patient with the AI in this section. Like, you can go through, try to be as quick as you can, but if you have a weird, like I said, just inconsistency or unpredictability of some of the AI in terms of like where they're moving, what they actually do, how much they see, when they see you, how quick they see you, there's various different things that go into it that just I wasn't able to nail down, and this time like it was a bit easier. But yeah, if you have to reset a few times, it's okay. I was actually very worried that I would not be able to get the achievement to pop in this specific run because, yeah, it just was rough. And by this time, I managed to get caught, and I just decided to book it because I figured I had enough time based off of where the chef was, and I got lucky there. I legitimately got lucky. But I'm going to pause real quick, actually. I'm going to back up a little. A good thing to note when you're climbing up this cabinet here, in the Enhanced Edition specifically, I never had this issue in the original version, so I don't know why that is, but if you are climbing up this shelf here, try to be as far to the left as possible, because I've had times where I was getting up to the top here, I had a run ended on the enhanced version of the game because I got up to the top, but because the climb was still registered as like being held on the controller, Six just decided to grab onto the lantern or grab onto this little thing. And if she decides to grab onto that, you're basically screwed because you've already let go of the climb, but the climb was registered long enough for her to grab onto it. So she's going to set it down immediately, and the collision box, the hit box, or whatever it is that you want to call it, of where this is when you set it down versus where Six is, will just launch her off the cabinet. And I had a run where the chef was right here, like I barely managed to escape, but because I accidentally grabbed onto this and was launched backwards directly into the chef, I had to restart because it registered as my death. I had no way to stop that. You will have maybe a little bit of jankiness with the grab mechanic in the enhanced version of the game. It might happen in the standard edition, but I never experienced it. It was only in the enhanced version where I had that happen. Actually, multiple times where it got a bit janky with those there. So be aware of that if you're doing the run on the enhanced edition. Like I said, it might also be in the standard, but I never saw it. I never even attempt or saw it like try to do that. This was also another important thing where restarting the checkpoint from this point was very aggravating because of what we talked about earlier with my character just snapping onto stuff. In the enhanced version, you can just sprint across these planks and you're fine. Like, you're snapped on there, you're okay. But in the original version, I happened to slide off right at the last second, and I barely managed to pause and give myself the chance to restart. But this is what I was talking about earlier as a little tip. If you have the restart from checkpoint here, you are okay. If you do not, it means you've already registered as dead. So because I haven't hit the ground here, it has not saved as I have died, so I can restart from the checkpoint. But if you are falling off something into the abyss, you know, into nothingness and just dying that way in the game, you have much less leeway because there's probably like just an actual polygon or whatever it is. I don't even know what the technical terms are. There's probably something with regard to where the map is that just registers you as dead, period, even if you can still see yourself on screen. I had one time where I tried to restart while I was still on screen, falling into like a gap to die. But I didn't have the option to restart from checkpoint because it already registered that I was dead. So do be aware of that. And like I said, if you're on the standard edition, you might very well have to deal with, you know, being more careful on some of those narrower walkways. Fortunately, the checkpoint restart from this point is okay because you do restart from the top of the cabinet instead of all the way at the beginning of the room. If you had to restart from the beginning of the room, I'm 99% certain I would not actually have had time to restart again and still get the trophy to pop. As was, I was only continuing from this point on just in case, because I was fairly certain that my run was already over. I thought that I had already wasted too much time with the 3 resets that I already had, plus that near death there, to be able to make it. So, you know, it really just goes to show you do have some leeway. You do have some time. You are okay to have to restart checkpoints. It does not change anything. Coming into this room with the other sleeping chef, I just sprint all the way up over to the, you know, cabinet on the other side and then climb like halfway up. if you make it over to there, you're not going to get seen, you're not going to get hurt if you just kind of sit there where I am, basically. Just kind of wait for the chef to leave, and then you can jump backwards, and fairly consistently jumping backwards from that point allows you to grab onto the ledge directly, and then you can just get the key. So that saves a little bit of time technically, but you know, just sprint over and climb up the cabinet, and then you're good. Otherwise, you could just wait under the bed and then climb up from there. It doesn't really make much difference either way. You still have to wait for the chef to climb up and leave the or wake up and leave the room. But yeah, that room is fairly consistent. You basically don't have to worry about it. It's just after the stress of that previous scenario, it's rough. But fortunately, the rest of the kitchen up until the very last chase is actually pretty easy and also pretty consistent. You, for the most part, don't have to worry about it. Same thing here. You're just going to do that fast crouch walk, wait for the chef to turn towards the cabinet, and then you can just, you know, crouch walk behind this way. They won't look over at you. I never had a time where they looked over at me anyway. I'm not saying it can never happen. I'm saying it never happened to me, at least. But with the shelf's AI pattern here, at least, it is much more consistent. I don't think I ever had an issue where I was seen or heard while I had the key from this part, just beelining it, basically. You know, you risk being seen with the chef where they were right there, but again, I don't think I ever had a moment where it actually registered, where I actually got hit, so you should be okay. But even if you do, you might be okay. I mean, honestly, doubtful. You'd have too much to have to sprint in that room for it to be good, but, you know, just make sure you climb right into the dumbwaiter and go right up. As a matter of time, just make sure you have all 3 of your little hams onto the actual grate over on the right side. You might have a little bit of weirdness with being able to grab them and drag them depending on the version of the game you're playing, and some other weird jankiness. It can be a little bit weird with that sometimes. Something I noticed was that the enhanced version of the game is much trickier to actually get the hams over that ridge onto the actual opening grates for some reason. Like, there's just a weirdness with the interaction between the ham and the edge of the grate there for some reason that I really don't know how to explain. I just noticed that you can drag very smoothly in the standard edition like that. Sometimes you have to work for it a little bit more in the enhanced edition for some reason, so be aware of that. But as long as you have your 3 hams there, you're good to go. Just don't forget one of them somehow. I was also very consistently able to jump from the dumbwaiter over to the table directly like that. It's not by any means a necessity to have enough time to finish the run, but you can save a solid handful of seconds by being able to do that. You know, go through, grind up your 3 sausages, jump, swing, do a couple of swings, but honestly, a lot of the time you only have to do 1 back and forth before you have enough leeway to jump. If you're not comfortable with that and need to do a second one, that's fine. Again, you have a few seconds. Like, you genuinely do have those few seconds of leeway. But from that point in the run all the way through the end, I think I do tend to try to go as quickly as possible because I was so worried about how much time was wasted with resets. So yeah, in this room, just do your sprint. I wouldn't do any jumping with the sprinting because as soon as you pull this lever to bring the elevator down, you want to make sure that you are in this box hiding away from the chef. And if you have any weirdness with like that slide that I just experienced there, you don't want to accidentally get caught. But the weird thing is that I don't actually know how sensitive this chef is in this particular room to noticing you. I never had any issues from this point on. As long as I was hidden by the time they were coming out of the elevator, I was fine. And once they come over to the left side of the room like this, you can sneak out and basically you can just sprint to the elevator because they're not going to be able to make it to the elevator with you. There's not enough time before the elevator closes, and I never noticed them managing to hear me. It was always the elevator moving that they noticed, so you're good to go there. Just make sure that you're in this grate and that you're not like popping out of it to any degree. Make sure you're like that far into it, or however far that far means to you. Just so that they don't see you immediately as they come right out of the elevator. They'll do their little look-see, left, right, or their left and their right anyway. As soon as they like walk over towards the door like that, you're good to pop out of the grate there, or whatever it is that you want to call it. As long as you were still holding the crouch the entire time, do not let go of the crouch at any point. You're good to just follow them into the room like this. By the time they get to the table, you're good to just, you know, go across. Don't need to hide under any tables. You have enough time to straight up be able to jump onto this and make it under there if you're following right behind the chef, so you don't have to wait for them to do their whole rotation of other random nonsense. Push the button, sprint, and slide under this hole here. That was actually the only time that I was able to slide under that effectively. Sometimes you can jump straight onto the table, but once you're there, if you're able to get onto the table quick enough, you can just sprint from that point to the elevator and you're good. I don't think I had any issues with this room, except for the very first time that I was running the speed run, and I wasn't entirely certain about AI timing, right? So you're good to go. And once again, by the time they get in the elevator and whatnot, you're good to go. I was actually able to save some time with confidence by just jumping, releasing, pulling open the garbage chute, and then jumping and making it in there before the chef was ever even able to make it into the room. But that was a tactic that I only adopted in my last few attempts, after having run this attempted speed run like for 8 hours worth of time or something like that, because I kind of understood the timing of the chef there enough with my speed with it specifically to be comfortable with it. But it does allow you to be able to make it into this room of the kitchen, and make it over to the back and hide under this particular sink very quickly, just following behind the chef. As soon as this left chef actually goes and starts washing dishes there, you're good to just go across the entire room. The AI in this room with the chefs is also very predictable and consistent. Just, you know, go under the table over here. The chef over there will kind of move and change positions in a way that makes you think they might end up being able to look around and see you. They won't. It just won't happen. Even in that moment right there, they won't see you. Or once again, I never had an experience where they saw me. Flip the switch over here. Oh, sorry, excuse me. But you'll flip the switch over here. Just climb under the table immediately. The timing of this can sometimes get a bit sketchy. There were times where I was able to just straight up leave the room immediately, depending on how quickly I was able to get to this corner of the table versus when the chef was able to pop in. But I recommend taking it slow here so that you don't get seen, because that can sometimes affect the AI pathing of the chef. So just wait for them to go back to that table and then you're good to go. You're good to just go to the left again, following the same path as you came over to the right before, just the opposite direction, just backwards a bit. And then, you know, regardless of what the chefs are doing, you have the leeway to be able to jump on here and then climb up the plates and not get caught quite consistently. I don't think I ever got caught in this section here. Just make sure when you grab onto that hook, try to be facing the direction that you're going over here to the right when you grab onto the hook, because you'll have a little bit less jankiness with this part of the encounter, and this is going to be the other run killer of the game. If you do not get caught anywhere in chapter 3 and you get caught in the game, you're most likely getting caught here. Wait to drop down until the second section of plates here, because you'll have less of a stun that you'll have to deal with, and then just do that sprint and jumping every few steps to give you that distance without tiring yourself out too much. That was able to consistently let me get to this spot. But no matter what, basically when you're on here, let me rewind a few seconds. When you're on this little collection of plates here, once you've climbed onto this section, you just have to commit. You just have to go for it and hold that sprint still and just jump while holding the grab button to get onto the hook, because if you don't, you'll get grabbed by the chefs. It doesn't matter if you miss the hook and you die, you will get grabbed by the chefs. So even if you're not comfortable or confident that you will be able to grab onto the hook there, this is a run killer spot. You either make it onto the hook and you're fine, which I did not think would happen in that particular situation. I think I got lucky in this run. But you either make it onto the hook and you're fine, you survive, you live, or you get caught by the chefs and you die, or you don't hit the hook and you die. So either you die by doing nothing in your non-confidence, or you live. So just try the jump. Just make sure you're holding the sprint and you're holding the grab button as you jump. That is the only way to make sure that you're good. But yeah, this is another section where in the standard edition of the game, with you being a little bit snapped on to a terrain, I guess, to the environment, where things might get a little bit sketch, where sprinting about might, you know, might affect you, and where you might slide off or something on accident. Just pay close attention to where your character is. Take it slow if you need to. Again, you generally have leeway. It does get a bit sketch here. I did have that particular example right there where I nearly fell off because of being in the standard edition, so just be very careful, and make sure that you basically have your thumb right on the pause button to be able to reset before you die. So I very nearly had my run ended right there because of that, so just pay very close attention. And like I said, that's not nearly as much of an issue in the Enhanced Edition. Was never a concern at all there. In the Standard Edition, I had to be a lot more careful. I think they might have made that change in the Enhanced Edition specifically to make it so that players didn't fall off like unwittingly in their first playthrough or something as often. That might have been something that they were worried about in that regard, but because the platforming of this game isn't precise enough for, you know, falling off so easily like in that situation to feel fair. But yeah, in the Standard Edition, you have to be a little bit more careful with that kind of thing, and the same holds true with here. Just make sure you have your camera all the way through before you actually drop down, because things can get a little bit goofy just like that. I very nearly didn't land properly to be able to live, so, you know, just that same advice, be careful. I just wish the loading screens on the Standard Edition weren't so slow. There we go. Drop down here. Pull a plank, and then you're on your way. So chapter 4 does have a couple of sections that are pretty sketchy, but it is also pretty consistent. That was pretty dangerous, me just sprinting through in this section here on this run, but you know, that's how it goes sometimes. Just try not to be dumb is basically the advice that I can give you. There were a couple points where I was just straight up dumb with some of my decisions here, so be wary of that. But generally speaking, chapter 4 is not so bad, not least because it's not very long. Chapters 2 and 3 are both quite lengthy compared to the rest, and because both of them have like 1 to 2 round run killers in them a piece, it can get sketchy. In this room specifically, I generally advise not doing too much sprinting, because you're going to want to reserve your stamina for when a guy in the next room notices you, just to be safe. You'll probably be fine, but I tend to wait and then sprint as soon as the guy notices me, just so that I can guarantee with the sprint and the jumps that I have the leeway, that I have the distance, that I'm not going to get caught at the last second right there. I had a run where I was very close to getting caught right there at the very last second because of running out of stamina. This section is also very sketch, just on account of the way this lady on the right looks when trying to grab you. It's super sketchy. Just be sure that you're holding on to that grab button when you're trying to swing, because it can look weird, especially when you jump over to this shelf here. It can look very much like you're about to get grabbed, and that's just the way that it looks in both editions of the game. It looks way worse than it is, but definitely I was sweating bullets every time I got through that section. Usually you'll be fine, just be sure you're grabbing onto the ledge, otherwise it might get dangerous. This table here is not so bad. You can sprint. Sometimes it might be worth not, but I actually never got grabbed on that table there. That table is definitely very sketchy. Just be sure you know the route. That might be a section that would be good to practice, to make sure that you know that route so that you're not getting grabbed, and just practicing that checkpoint consistently. Just reload the checkpoint, do the table, reload the checkpoint, do the table. Just do it over and over again until you are just never getting caught. Like I said, I never got caught there, but it is pretty sketchy. You don't want that to be the place where your run ends. Here is also another case where I wait for the fat guys to notice me before I start sprinting and running. I had strangely little stamina there as well, so I got concerned, but it was okay. Here I just kind of walk to the left until you wait for this fat guy on the left to move, and then just run. Because yeah, it can get a little bit sketch. I did have a run end because I was stupid and for whatever reason tried to grab onto the table directly instead of the boxes right there. I also had that really big scare on this run where I very nearly got grabbed because for whatever reason my sprint and jump onto the guy's back launched me further into the game instead of letting me continue to walk and jump over top him. But yeah, just be careful in this section because this can be a little bit weird with this guy with the boxes. I decided to just climb onto the box directly to save myself the climbing seconds, but yeah, depending on how your sprint and your jump go on the amount of distance that you get when trying to jump over that guy, that section can be a bit sketch. So again, just kind of be very ready to man, what's the term? Pause if you need to. As soon as you end up through that doorway, also just run sprint as soon as you see the elevator move and make sure you're hiding in this box, specifically this corner of the room. You will never get caught here, so just sprint here. But yeah, there are a few different sections of the game here where having your thumb on the pause button ready to go just in case are useful. But if I'd gotten caught by that guy, if I'd gotten grabbed by him because of a weird collision with, you know, jumping on his back, I would have been very upset. Here, I don't know what the deal is, why I've stopped. I had to look away at something else for a handful of seconds for some reason. But yeah, just grab that little metal thing, throw it at the mirror, climb up the back, no big deal. I don't know what it was that I was having to check when I stopped there in the middle of the room for a handful of seconds. That was dangerous considering how tight I think my timing ended up being in this run, but it is what it is. Yeah, this is another section where being in the standard edition of the game, just be ready to pause if you need to, because I think the timing of this drop and walking across these bars is just a little bit tighter this time around, or in this version of the game. So just be ready to pause if you accidentally fall off the pipe before you're over one of the tables, because you won't live if you hit the ground from that height. And again, that being the way for a run to end at this point in the game would just be very disappointing. But anyway, you're just going to run through here. You might want to save your stamina in that moment and wait for these doors to actually start opening before you sprint, because your stamina can get pretty sketch in this encounter as well. I do a couple of jumps to give myself a little bit of distance, but I only jump a few times. Definitely don't do it too often, because you're really going to run out of stamina by the end of the chase, and you do not want to get caught just because you ran out of stamina. So, you know, just be careful with it. Be sure to remember that the second one of these shelves right there falls down, so be sure to try to jump. You can see that I am basically out of stamina there. I was almost in reach of an enemy right there as well. Just stay close to the screen on the table here and just be holding the grab button to jump onto that lamp, and do not let go until you are at the peak of the right side there so that you don't die. I have died there because of letting go too early, stupidly. Not on any of my attempts at this speed run, but just playing the regular game, but it has happened. But yeah, this hallway is another one of those hunger ping sections where you're actually able to get a good bit of the way through by jumping to get a little bit of extra distance. But again, these sections are just a little bit tedious because there's nothing really you can do about it. You just have to sit there. It's part of the game. It's just an amount of time that is inherent to playing the game for whatever reason. But yeah, if you can get through like that chapter 4 section, you're sitting pretty. Chapter 5 is super easy, super easy, and since chapters 4 and 5 combined are barely as long as some of the previous chapters individually, it feels like you're able to make very good progress here. So chapter 4 does have a couple of those scary segments, and I have had to reset in chapter 4 a couple of times, but mostly for stupid reasons, actually. Not because I legitimately got caught by something that was difficult, but just because I let myself die in a way that was stupid. But it does have a couple of those sketchy moments, so you know, you're not in the clear once you're past chapter 3, but you're mostly in the clear once you're past chapter 3. Chapter 4 is a lot less sketchy than chapters 2 or 3 are, and like I said, chapter 5, super easy. This part of the run, you're basically smooth sailing. If you die in chapter 5, I question how you got to the chapter 5 without dying in the first place, is basically how I'll put it. This chapter is super easy. I did have one weird glitch, I think, in the enhanced version of the game, where the key that you have to get in the early part of the chapter here, there was a visual bug, I think, where I was still in the hold animation, but the key wasn't actually in my arms. And I didn't notice until I was actually coming down these stairs after grabbing the key. But instead of wasting the like 10 seconds or whatever to see if I still had the key, just to find out that I didn't because of some bug that meant that I just didn't have it and it wasn't just a visual bug, I didn't test it. I just decided to restart the checkpoint from where you grabbed the key in the first place. Anyway, all of that's neither here nor there. That wasn't in this edition of the game. Just be sure that you are crouch walking across this section. You can hold the sprint button while you're crouched behind the lady there. She won't hear you. You'll be fine. By the time you get to the bed of the room here, you're good to sprint and she won't hear you. Push the vase over and grab the key. I did have that weird occasion here where I just didn't manage to push the vase for whatever reason that I couldn't define. In the base game, the key does tend to launch right there. At least that's what I noticed in the standard edition, was it launched away from the vase. In the enhanced edition, I don't think I had either of my couple of attempts crushing the vase where the key was outside of it, like it was in the crumbles. I don't know if that means anything or matters, but you know, that is how it is. But yeah, once you grab the key, you can just sprint all the way to the door. In the enhanced edition, I did have that one time where the key was no longer in my hands when I turned right here. But I wasn't sure if that was just a visual bug or if it was like somehow the key had disappeared. So I just decided to reset the checkpoint and grab the key again just in case. In this hallway, you can start running basically right from the beginning of the room, but I usually wait until about there with the mannequins to start, because that's where the lady actually appears, and you don't want to run out of stamina and potentially be grabbed by her before you actually make it through that slide. But from this point on, that is the only part of this chapter that is really a risk where you might get caught or anything like that. After that, you won't see the lady again until you actually have to face off against her. You get to this room, just go straight all the way over to the right and grab the mirror, and then you do the encounter with her. The encounter is super easy. I do not see how anybody would be able to get to this point without dying and manage to get taken by the lady, unless like something drastically horrible went wrong in their gameplay and they were like distracted and just straight up not paying attention. But yeah, this part where you're just facing off against the lady, super easy. The light will usually spawn to the left, I think that's pretty normal, is that it'll go to the left. I just spin in circles until it registers that the lady's over there. You get her once there, easy peasy. Just immediately start running to the right because the light will be over to a far right over here. Again, I just kind of do the spin just because, and then stop as soon as it registers that she's there. You're good. As long as you're not lollygagging and spending like 3 seconds letting the lady approach you without facing her with the mirror, you're fine. That's just the way that things go. You'll have a third little section in the middle of the room where she'll kind of fake you once or twice. And sometimes I'll like follow her with the fake just in case, but she'll fake you twice here, and then you get a third hit on her. And then you'll have one final moment where you come towards you a little bit for one last little light show. And I think you have to get her 3 times in here, I think. But either way, she'll do a couple of fakes each time pretty consistently. Again, it's not super hard. As long as you get her within a second of her appearing for real like that, you're good. Like, there's no real danger to this section. As terrifying as this is on a very first playthrough, if you're going through it blind, for speedrun purposes and every playthrough afterwards, easiest section of the game, for sure. You know, still quite creepy, but definitely the easiest section of the game. So yeah, you get your 1, 2, 3 bingo bango, and you're good. you go through a last little wake up sequence, and just be sure to actually go through this quickly, because I do think on one of my successful runs, I don't know if it was this one or the enhanced edition, it was this one where I just kind of stood there for like 5 seconds, forgetting that, oh yeah, I still need to control 6. This isn't part of the cutscene. I need to actually control her to go feast. Yeah, and then as long as you do that, you get the lady, and then if you do it quick enough, your trophy will pop. Not at this point, not when you get the lady, but when you're like halfway up the stairs at the very end of the last section. So, you know, there's a solid handful of minutes of your speed run where it is largely determined by just how much time between this point and the actual trophy pop there is remaining, how much leeway you have with that. I do wish I could actually show you like my runtime, like how long in game this specific run took with all of the resets and everything associated with it, just so I could prove to you like you have plenty of time. It is proof enough, seeing how many times I had to reset in this run and still got the trophy to pop. Like, you're good, but the enhanced edition, I was able to see my run, and my enhanced edition run was a good bit better than this one. I think I only reset once in the enhanced version that I succeeded with, and like I said, that run was less than 52 minutes for sure. So you have plenty of time. Like, you genuinely do have plenty of time if you follow my strats and just pay attention to some things, kind of the way that I showed you. You're not getting world record time, but for the purpose of the trophy and just making sure you're under an hour, not difficult at all. So yeah, we're just kind of watching through the very end of the game here, just sucking all the souls of the guests at the maw, just trying to get to the end. This is, I got caught on that lady for a couple of seconds, which also irritated me because, again, at this point of the run, with all the resets that I had in Chapter 3, I was still very unsure if I actually managed to beat the time, because when I was timing myself on my phone while doing the run, it included all of the save screens and stuff like that, and all the resets. This is actually an important point that I should have brought up, but which I did bring up in my video that I did last month about this topic. I'm not actually sure if resets count in your save file time. I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know why they wouldn't, but load screens don't, for sure, because when I was to this point in the run and I was timing on my phone, I think I was at like a minute, and I think I was at an hour and 4 minutes at this point or something like that. So I had at least 4 minutes worth of like load screens that I had to deal with. But by the time you're going up the stairs, it is around this point that the trophy will pop. There you go. You see that save down there, trophy popped right over on the other side, and at this point the game is controlling you going up the stairs as well. I don't think you're even controlling her walking up anymore. So yeah, I did manage to get the run. I did manage to get the trophy to pop in this run, despite this run on the standard edition being honestly quite bad. There were a lot of ways in which it was a very good run, but there were enough resets there in the kitchen and a couple other sketchy points where I very nearly biffed it by falling off, that were big concerns. I had no idea, no confidence that the trophy would actually pop. It was a huge relief that the trophy actually popped here. So just know that it's not that difficult. By the time you've run through a handful of attempts and you're able to get through those first couple chapters pretty consistently, you're good. Like, you know, there's not much else to it. But I'll go ahead and just like try and scrub through and find in the footage whenever it actually manages to load down there, because the PS4 is very slow with updating some of this stuff. You can see that in my trophies for Little Nightmares, I have all of them now in the PS4 version of the game. So there's the 3 on the third DLC, the 3 on the second DLC, the 3 on the first DLC, and all of the trophies in the base game, including now Hard to the Core. So there's my proof that on February 9th, I got Hard to the Core on PS4, and I got it, I believe, on February 6th, I think, on PS5. So I did go through and get it a second time on PS4, partially so that I could have the complete trophy list on both versions of the game, but also because I just forgot. I somehow completely forgot to actually go through and save the footage directly from the PS5 because I wasn't recording my runs on the PS5, so I forgot to save the run where I got the trophy on the PS5 version, which I feel very stupid about. I wish I saved that. And I would have used that footage for this video, but because I didn't, I was like, well, I do still kind of want to do a commentary, so maybe I should try to get it on PS4 as well, and I'll record that run and do a commentary. So that's what this video was. But yeah, thank you for checking this out. If any of these tips or tricks or, just little bits of extra information that I provided were at all helpful to you, I'm glad. I really hope that any of it was helpful to you. I'm honored if you checked out this video in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to get out of your face. I have been recording for a solid half dozen hours or more, various different stuff today. I apologize for any voice cracks or otherwise weak voice moments in this video. I just had one, it's a handful of seconds ago while I'm doing this outro. And I don't really have anything else to say. Like I said, I hope that this little bit of commentary was helpful to a couple of people who might be struggling with the trophy or who might just want to see somebody else go through the entire process with some of those tips and tricks kind of nearby rather than just watching them do it and not being exactly sure what's going on. So I hope this was helpful, and if it was, please be sure to let me know. Leave a like on the video if you did find it helpful, if it was enjoyable. I'm not sure I'm going to do any runs like this and make this a regular thing, but I have wanted to replay Stray for a long time, and that is another game that does have a speedrun trophy related to it, 2-hour speedrun, I believe, but I think you can get that speedrun in an hour and a half without much difficulty, so that might be something that I decide to actually do. I might even have footage of that, but I would have to study the game again to actually be able to have a useful commentary to go with it. But in either case, that will be the end of today's video. Sorry for rambling at the very end of it. Sorry for rambling at all throughout it. It was a long one in either case, but thank you for watching one final time. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be, which I think that might be the finale of my Alan Wake Let's Play. That is the next video, and I'll be live streaming, I think, Ghost of Yotei on Saturday. I should be coming up pretty close to the end of the game at this point by the time this video comes out, but I'm recording this video literally a month ahead of time. I'm recording this on February 26th. This video comes out on March 25th, so I'm not sure how far into that game I am by then, but like I said, I hope to see you guys in whatever happens next. I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well.